Good morning. Good morning to everyone as we come in. Welcome to our first virtual boot camp. We are here this morning. We wanted to make sure virtual boot camp this morning is a ministry that we have here at Galilee. It's a men's ministry and for boys. Not only do we seek to educate our men and rebuild our men, but we also seek to build up our young men, our boys. It's a way of us reaching back as men and not only helping one another, but also reaching back and helping the next generation and mentoring them. So we wanted to make sure that that ministry was continuing to go forth, although COVID-19 hit today. Listen, I want to welcome each and every one of you. Please start coming in as we go through this talk. We call it shop talk. We talk as men about what it means to be a man, and even more than that, what it means to be the man that God has called us to be. How God gets us from boy to man and his will and his way for our life. I want to thank all of our guests for coming in today, not only our panelists, but we want to thank those that are at Juvenile Justice, the participants that are looking on today. Good morning to you. We want to let you know that we love our young brothers and sisters, and we wanted to just be able to share our experiences and talk to you a little bit here virtually. Also, the Lifeline program with Goodwill Industries for those 18 to 25 that are going through reentry. You also have been invited into this space today. And so we thank you for being a part of our conversation. If you have any questions, if you're a mother or a parent, and you have any questions about raising your young son, we want you to submit those questions today. If you're a man and you have questions about what it means to just be a man, we want you to submit those questions in our chat today. We're on Facebook Live as well as YouTube Live today at GBC Shreveport. At GBC Shreveport is the address. If you want to catch us on YouTube Live, we're there as well. Again, this is called Boot Camp. And we want to let you know today what our mission is with our men's ministry called Boot Camp. Our mission is simply this. Our mission is to reconnect men from all walks of life with God, themselves, and their families. Let me read that again. Our mission is simple today as men's spiritual boot camp. Our mission is to reconnect men from all walks of life with God, themselves, and their families. That's what we came to do today, is to reconnect boys and men with God, themselves, and their families today, as we too try to reconnect with God. Again, my name is Brian Wilson. I'm the pastor here at Galilee Baptist Church. Born and raised in Shreveport, graduated from Huntington High School, went on to Grambling, played in the band at Grambling, went from Grambling and got my master's degree, and now I'm back home serving God and serving his church. So I'm glad to be here today. We also have with us Brandon Keith Lacey, another local pastor. Go ahead, Brother Lacey. Pastor Lacey, please introduce yourself.
Well, good morning to each of you and all of you. First of all, let me say thank you to Pastor Wilson for the invite. I'm very privileged and honored to have the opportunity to share with the Galilee Church family, as well as all of those who are watching. Service senior pastor of True Life Full Gospel House of Worship in Shreveport, Louisiana, as well as district overseer of the Louisiana Northwest District of the Full Gospel Baptist Church Fellowship International. Lifelong citizen of Shreveport, graduated Fair Park High School, year 2000. Shout out to all my Indians who are watching this. And then, of course, attended Grambling State University as well. World Fame Tiger Marching Band, if y'all watching, shout out to you guys as well. And wanted to take a moment just say hi to my wife who's watching as well, Lady Angela Lacey. And, of course, 3 kids that we have, Brianna, BJ, and Braylon. So I'm looking forward to the discussion on today. And prayerfully, some things will be said and done that add value to the lives of everybody that's watching.
All right. Our deacon, who helps us lead this ministry, as well as I myself, Brother Deacon Stephen Grant. He has with him his son as well, Chris Grant. You guys go ahead and introduce yourselves.
Well, good morning to everybody out there. As Pastor said, I'm Stephen Grant, deacon at Galilee Baptist Church. Also principal at Green Oaks Performing Arts Academy. Father of 2. This is my son. He'll introduce himself. Just very excited about being on this, just being an opportunity for us to share and grow, and for us to kind of just create a platform in which we are able to help other men, young men, and even ladies, women who are raising young boys, and so forth. So just glad to be on, glad to be a part of this ministry, and just excited about what this is going to do.
And like Pastor said, good morning. My name is Chris Grant. I'm a lifetime member of Galilee Baptist Church. I grew up in Shreveport, graduated from Byrd High School, went on to graduate from Grambling State University, and played football down there, and just glad to be able to offer my perspective on things. And as he said, I'm excited as well for this discussion.
Reverend Henderson, introduce yourself.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Reverend Henderson. I serve at the church as Pastor Wilson's assistant. I'm also a teacher at the Great School of Magnolia, School of Excellence. I'm the head basketball coach as of this coming school year, and teaching computers. I love everything about this program, about boot camp, and I'm so proud to be a member of Galilee Baptist Church.
All right, and our special guest, Brother Patrick M. Brown. I almost called you Reverend, but he's the author of a local author of a popular book that has really touched my heart and many of our hearts that we're going to build our conversation around, and it's called Lost Black Boys. Our conversation today will be about lost black boys. Thank you for showing that today. All right, we got our books with us today. We want you to know that we are here. And go ahead and introduce yourself to us, Patrick Brown.
Turn the sound.
Turn your sound up, Patrick. Turn your sound up on your system.
Good morning. I'm Patrick Brown.
Born
and raised in Shreveport. I went to Huntington 1 year, then I moved to North Carolina and graduated from high school in North Carolina. I came back, went to Wiley College, got my degree from Wiley in business. You can't hear me?
Yeah, we hear you. We hear you.
Uh-oh.
We hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me? Mic check. Can y'all hear me?
Yes, sir.
This is connection.
Yeah, it's connection.
Okay. You got that Xfinity internet.
All right, well, I'm the author of Lost Black Boys. Okay, good. Thumbs up. I'm a citizen of Shreveport. I graduated from Wiley College. I own a little small car lot. I'm a real estate investor. And now I'm just on a mission to try to help men and black boys.
Man, we thank you for being a part of our program today, and we look forward to this conversation. Listen, I'm encouraged all of those. I'm encouraged all of those that are looking at us today to make sure that you submit your questions so that we can have a conversation and include you to be a part of it as well. We don't want to just talk today from our own personal experience, but we also want to help and make sure that we are helpful on this platform today. So if you have any questions, from whether you're a parent or whether you are a young man, older man, whomever you may be, this ministry is for you. And whatever questions you have, we want to make sure that we answer those today. So listen, we're going to turn it over at this time. I'm going to turn it over to Brother Grant and Patrick Brown, and they'll begin to facilitate our conversation for today, this morning. Thank you again for tuning in. Go ahead, Brother Grant.
All right. First, I want to say for any of you, I mean, this is an excellent read. This book here, I believe all men and young boys will be able to relate to it in some form or fashion. Patrick we're going to be dealing with the first two chapters this morning. Chapter 1 is titled No Fear, and chapter 2 is titled Work Everybody. And so there are a number of different things that Patrick talks about. When he's talking about no fear, he kind of goes in depth about when he was a young boy, and at various events in his life, there was some fear that came about during his life. So, Patrick, if you don't mind, kind of discuss what is behind the reason for chapter 1, no fear. Okay, we have some connection issue again. I think
he's gonna lag behind a little bit. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna give him a call so we can pick up his audio. Okay. In the meantime, go ahead and you all start talking about a little bit about that.
So one of the things that he talked about, and I'd like to hear everybody's perspective on it. One of the things he said in his book, he said the key is to face your fears by being brave and bold, no matter what. The one thing that really stood out was he said that everyone is afraid of something. It's just that that regardless of their age, regardless of their sex or color, it's just that they live with it and it's on the inside of them, and no one actually can physically see it. It's just something we know within. Now that struck an chord with me because I thought about it was a movie, a Clint Eastwood movie, and I forgot the name. High Plains Drifter, I think was the title of the movie. And the lady told him that everybody was afraid of him, and he said that what makes men afraid is what they know about themselves on the inside. And I found that to be very true. That the thing that makes me hesitant, and I'm speaking from my truth, is that I will oftentimes talk myself or back myself out of something that I'm going through or need to go through. And oftentimes that makes me hesitant and makes me kind of second guess myself. So that's what I want to kind of start off with that. What do you guys, or what are your thoughts on that?
I'll jump in first, and I think for me, we talk about fear. It's a matter of unknown. Usually, it's a byproduct of the familiarities that we have with certain aspects of life. And I think for us being African American men, there's so much that we have been intentionally throughout our existence in America. We've been intentionally held off from so many realities and intentionally detached from certain levels of exposure that create in us a greater level of fear, because we're intentionally detached. We're intentionally detached from, of course, if you go back to the history, when you talk about, being restricted from being able to read, restricted from education, restricted from all those different dynamics of our existence. As we grew and as we progress as a people, those different avenues continue to be in place. When you look at segregation, you look at Jim Crow, and then those elements continue to create for us obstacles that keep us from information. And so because there's an absence of information on so many fronts for us, many of us grew up with those lack of understandings and information. We grow up with those fears that we have to learn how to overcome. And so for me, the way I've been able to overcome fear is just not being afraid to expose myself and not being afraid to learn. And the more we learn, the more we understand. And the more we understand, the more we're able to cope with a lot of the fears that we have on the inside.
Man, that was good. Can y'all hear me now?
We can hear you.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Let's get it rolling. We all here now. Let's get this thing rolling. So go ahead, brother Steve.
What we've been discussing, we started discussing the first chapter, No Fear, and Pastor Lacey just kind of talking from the perspective of what leads to fear. I had mentioned a particular quote from a movie in which the person said that what makes men afraid is what they know about themselves inside. Talk about themselves inside is what makes them fear things, and they have to overcome their fears, because I believe in chapter 1 you really talked a lot about overcoming your fears and just going through. I think the quote from your book, it is said, you said, quote, "The key is to face your fears by being brave and bold no matter what." So kind of explain from your perspective of what brought that on for you to write about that in your book.
Well, being a black male, being raised in a poor black neighborhood, which was Hollywood, you have to. The world outside of my house was different than the world inside of my house. Inside of my house, my grandmother and my mom, they raised me to be respectful and be polite and be kind. Well, we all know, being black men, that doesn't always work on the outside world when you're a kid. Excuse me. So, I had to find who I was, on the inside, because trying to navigate, oftentimes, I want to make sure I say this right. Oftentimes, as black men, we are portraying images that we see other people doing, not necessarily who we truly are. And it's tough sometimes. That's a very tough thing, because we're really actors. We're really actors. And so as a child, I had to learn to face that fear. Once you face that fear and you realize that, that fear is not real. The God and the upbringing that you have inside of you will protect you from all of that. You don't have to be something that you're not, in the attempt to try to, fit in. And so that's basically what motivated chapter 1, because I was scared as a child. I wasn't a tough guy. I wasn't a bad kid. I wasn't a fighter, but I had to be. In my neighborhood, I had to be, but it wasn't who I truly was. And so that whole first chapter was motivated by that. I hung around a lot of kids who were into a lot of stuff, who were much different than me. And so I want young men, young boys to know it's okay to be who you're raised to be. If your parents are raising you to be godly and spiritual and respectful and kind, then it's gonna be tough, but you gotta stand firm on it and be that. Because in the long run, it will work out for you, and it will help you not be in problem situations. So that I'm kind of rambling right now, but that's what motivated chapter 1, no fear.
Well, you make a lot of sense, and I think many, Reverend Henderson can attest to this, being an administrator and being a teacher and so forth, such as myself, and even Brandon. I know Brandon can relate to that, coming through Fair Park. He either saw it himself or had to deal with it himself, in which we have young men who are sometimes operating on survival.
Yes.
They just survive their teenage years, and oftentimes, so they're trying to acclimate into something that's really not what they want to do, but they're trying to survive.
Yes.
On that.
Right.
I want my son Chris to talk about it, because when he went off to college, that's one of the conversations I had with him about that. Not just being my son and our children, but being a Christian going off to college can be very challenging, but even when he was in high school. So kind of talk about your.
Well, from my perspective, I understand how you explained it. The world is so much different than your world inside your house. I was raised to be very, as you said, kind, respectful, God-fearing and everything. And my eyes weren't open to that reality until I went off to college and I met guys who literally never went to church. They never took communion. They hadn't been baptized. They hadn't, dealt with the kind of things that I dealt with and been exposed to the kind of men that I was exposed to. And, naturally, it's a bit of a combative environment for your own mindset, because it wasn't that I was naive, but it was that I didn't realize how sheltered I was in a sense of coming from where I came from. Because, some of these guys, they just really, like he said, they operated their teenage years from a standpoint of survival. And what was sad to see was that a lot of those guys, they start out at that young age, but they carry that going up until their 20s, their early 20s and everything. So, they become 23-year-old men on a college campus. They're that have an opportunity to get an education, but they can't let go of what they came from. They like to bring that. It's just natural for them to bring that to, a place of higher learning, and it hinders them in a way. It hinders them in the classroom. They'll still have bump-ins with the law, off the field issues and stuff like that. Always combating any type of correction from coaches or, professors or anybody like that, because I grew up with a strong male figure in my life that was very much intent on chastising me whenever I needed to be chastised, to say the least. And for a lot of them, they didn't grow up with that man in their house, so they're looking at a coach. When the coach is yelling at them and try to get them to do stuff, they're offended and taking it personal, like, man, who are you talking to? And they're thinking that, it's a challenge and a threat, not being able to discern between, this is actually somebody who's trying to give you discipline. They're on you because they see it in you to be better. And I think it's important for, a lot of young guys to have that voice, because young lost boys, like you say, grow up to be lost men. And in the book, you talked about how, it was so much easier for somebody to fix a child. Well, it's so much easier to raise a child than it is to fix a broken man. And so I love that every day down there. Yeah, I really did.
Reverend Henderson,
go ahead. I kind of want to chime in on that.
Go ahead.
Can I chime in on that?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Real quick. So, because I appreciate hearing your son talk, and it just reminded me of when I was if you read the book, prior to me, my mom sent me to go live with my dad at age 14.
Correct.
Prior to me going to live with my dad, I was a spoiled kid. My mom was, and this happens in a lot of, single parent households, but just being raised by your mom, she wanted to please me. And I didn't realize it then, but I didn't have a strong man telling, correcting me and teaching me certain things. So I had issues in the outside world when the world didn't kiss my butt or give me what I wanted or didn't talk to me the way I thought I was supposed to be spoken to. Like your son was saying, I took offense to it. And so I had to learn to be a man. Once I got sent to stay with my dad, I realized that, I was off track, and it wasn't my mom's fault. She did her best. She loved me, and she took care of me, but she just didn't give me that male discipline that a lot of our young boys are missing. And so, being on here with you strong fathers, your kids are blessed, and we got to figure out a way to help these young men without making their mothers feel slighted, because they're doing a great job, but they're not men. And I don't know how you say that, without them feeling slighted, because you just, it takes a man to teach a boy how to be a man. And fortunately, I got sent to North Carolina because I was going the wrong way prior to my mom sending me away. I wasn't a thug or I wasn't thuggish or criminal, but I wasn't disciplined. I came home when I wanted to. I hung around the wrong people, and it easily happens that way with our young men being around, because your friends become kind of like your father figures. you do what the guys in your group do versus doing what you see the man in your home doing. And so those friends have almost a stronger influence than the women in your house that's raising you. So it's, just wanted to speak on what your son just said. That's a great point, brother.
Yeah, I think you said something powerful. I saw Reverend Henderson wanted to say something as well. Reverend Henderson, go ahead and weigh in.
Yeah, I wanted to say I'm kind of like Chris to the point that I didn't grow up in what was considered a bad neighborhood, and my father was in the home. And in your book, you referenced the fact that neighborhoods had something to do with how we behave as young men, and I think that's so true. That the problems that we have, some of it comes from where our environment, where we grew up at. But even with that, there are some people who grew up in good environments and still turned out not so great. So how can we combat that as Black men?
Look, Pastor, you want me to speak on, or I feel like Pastor Lacy wanted to say something, so I didn't want to cut him off.
No, I didn't catch the question. I was going to ask him to repeat the question.
Go ahead, Pat.
Say again.
Go ahead.
To chime in on Reverend Henderson.
Yeah. He talked a little bit about how do we combat that when they do have a good upbringing, but things still go awry.
Well, that's kind of that. I kind of get into that further on into the book, but that's really it's the right circle. Like you have to, like my grandma tell me still to this day, if you want to know something about a person, you look at the people they're around the most. And so you combat that by, if you know you are around guys or young men that are not doing the right thing, you have to remove yourself. It's just that simple, because you are going to mimic and reflect the people that you're around the most. It's just like that in our world as a Black man. That's just kind of the way it is. You have to be, conscious of the people that you're around.
And Pat, I think going back to your book, another way that we conquer that fear and young men conquer that fear is just getting over the fear of be yourself. Because a lot of times, like you said, we get in trouble trying to be like other people. Like even with my sons at their young age, I encourage them to be themselves. I even see at the young age when they go to school how they may mimic whatever behavior they see. So there's a child in the classroom and that child is using profanity. And then my son will repeat the same words, not even knowing that he repeated the same words. And this becomes a cycle. And as we get older and older, we end up, like you said, mimicking what we see. And because we are not comfortable with who we are, Brandon can testify to this. We've talked about this before, that the way Brandon and I met is because we were in band at Grambling together. But even more than that, the way that we met because I started preaching my freshman year at Grambling. So I'm in the band and I've surrendered to my calling. It's something that I'd always felt on my heart. And you can almost say I did it at like the worst time. I'm a freshman. They call us crabs in the band. They already expect certain things out of us. I'm in Grambling band, so we dancing and everything. And man, I literally would get made fun of. Like, man, you a preacher. You ain't supposed to be dancing. You ain't supposed to be doing this. Like literally, seriously, to the point where I just wanted to get out the band.
Right.
I didn't want to finish the rest of the year out because it was uncomfortable for me to live out these Christian values. And listen, at the same time, I'm still going through my growth process. So I'm 18 and I'm 19, and even though I'm a Christian and I've started preaching, I still have the same desires and the same temptations that every other crowd brother and sister, every other freshman had, that my roommate had. So I'm dealing with all that at the same time. And it's been a struggle, even to now, to just continue to be who I am. So I think of getting over the fear of who we are helps us. And just embracing who we are, understanding that everybody not gonna like it, you're gonna get made fun of, but that's a part of you being who you are and not being fearful of not fitting in with everybody else.
And if I can add to that real quick, and I'll be brief. Now I wasn't preaching when I was in the band. That was just Brian. I wouldn't say, but just to add to that conversation in order to answer the question of what can we do. I think that as a community and as people, we also have to make sure that we celebrate those type of individuals and their accomplishments as well. Because, and here's why I say that: when I didn't come from a home with a male in the house, but there was a point where I was an honor roll student, grade A student, doing all the things that I was supposed to do. But because of some other dynamics, that wasn't celebrated. I wasn't getting attention from that. And as I got in middle school, high school, and I started to notice that when I acted up, all of a sudden I got attention. Now, it wasn't the attention that I was supposed to get, but it was attention. Because we as men, we like to be celebrated for something. We like to be recognized and acknowledged that we're doing something. And so when the good that I was doing wasn't getting a good job, congratulations, man, we're proud of you. When I wasn't hearing that I'm proud of you from the good that I was doing, but then I started getting attention and celebration from female, from other friends. When I was getting in trouble and when I was a troublemaker, that's what started pulling me towards the negativity, because that's where all the accolades were. And so one of the things that we have to do as a community and as parents is make sure that we are doing a good job celebrating the good that our positive young people are doing, and not giving more attention to the ones that are getting in trouble and bringing negativity out of the situation. Because a lot of times we over-focus on the negative and under-focus on the positive. And then those who are doing the positive are saying, well, I'm right here doing what I'm supposed to do, but nobody's even acknowledging it. And so I think that will help in that regard as well.
Here's something, and I want to kind of, so we can give some more insight to this, is how do we help, in my estimation, because I was raised by a single mother, as many of you, and for some of you, unlike some of you, I should say, I didn't even know my father. I didn't know what my father looked like. Even to this day, I don't know what he looks like. So the issue is then, I had men in my life that could speak to me. What do we say to the women who are raising young boys in this fashion? Now, one of the things I always say to them is, don't give up on the vision you have for your children. You know, don't give up on that, because a child can't see the vision. They can't see what they can become. But parents have it naturally within them to see the greatness in their children. And Patrick talked about them being young kings. And being young kings, which means there's a vision of greatness that parents naturally have. And I always say to parents, do not give up on the vision you have. And I also tell children not to get frustrated with the process of becoming great. And that's oftentimes what happens when many of the youth, many young boys, many grown men, let's not forget, we got men who have it going on up until the age of 30, and then they get to being single and on their own, and they fall apart. So how do we continue to get people to focus on not the now, but the future? You know, our faith tells us we walk by faith, not by sight. How do we get young women in general, or men in general, to not give up on the process?
Who was the question for? It's for me?
For you or any of the men. Particularly you, because I kind of borrowed that thought from your book.
Well, it's all about the one thing. The one thing my grandmother did raise me was she built confidence in me. And so we have to get these young men to believe in themselves. We have to get them to love themselves. We have to get them. Oh, did I disappear?
No,
okay.
you
We have to get them to a place of self-love, self-awareness, and spiritual strength. I keep going back to your son because, I mean, your son is an amazing young man, and you see it all over him. And the more the more young boys we get out there in the world that's like your son, it spreads. And so we have to let them know that it's okay to not be so angry. It's okay to show love. It's okay to be happy, and because we all just want love. We all, like Pastor Lacey just said, we all just want their recognition. We all just want that attention. We all want those pats on the back. And a lot of these young men, young boys, they just crying for attention, and some of them don't know how to get it in a positive way, and they get it so fast with the negativity. So what we're doing right now, we're doing it because, I'm not a pastor, so I don't choose my words as carefully as y'all do. But I will say this: seeing these strong men right now, this is important. Like, we need strong men. We need manly talking, manly walking, manly acting men talking to these young boys, and that's what I see right now in this podcast that we're doing. So we're making a difference, and that's no knock on anybody else. And these are my words; these are not these men words. But I'm glad that what I see right now, this is priceless, and so this is what our young men need to see.
And the reason I said that is because Brandon hit right on it. We've got to and I'm saying this and I'm speaking to anyone who is raising or dealing with any young man, young boy, or anybody dealing with a man who has been broken but still is trying to make his way back. We've got to continue to pat them on the back, acknowledge and congratulate them for the little small things they're doing. Ladies, women, mothers, if you have a son and for one reason you walk in the door and you saw that he had already washed the dishes or he had cleaned up this room, acknowledge him on that. I cannot express it, and Vern, I want you to talk about this as well. When young boys come to school, I greet every student that gets off my school bus, my middle schoolers in particular, every morning, and I shake their hands and I ask them how they're doing, and I will say to some of them when they'll have their backpacks and they hadn't had it in 2 days, I said, man, thank you for having that backpack. You're gonna do great today.
Yeah.
That's what we got to do on the regular. We have to be excited about the small things and stop waiting for the boys to be this great star in high school.
Yeah.
All of them need it because most of them will not go to college playing athletics. The majority, 97.4% will not go to college, people. So we got to encourage them in other ways. But Vern, I know you've dealing with a lot more than I did in education, so I want to hear your perspective on that.
We lost Reverend Henderson.
Did we? Okay.
We lost Reverend Henderson. I did want to say on that. I think Pat kind of hit on it that we're doing that. This is the work. Us actually availing ourselves to the younger generation, and recreating that village. I always go back to this. I know it's an old saying, but it takes a village. But I really believe in that concept because when I look back at my own life, I grew up in a single parent home, but it took a village for me to understand what it meant to be a man, and even today to persevere through whatever challenges I faced. I use my older brother, as really my example. Like everything he did, I wanted to do. So because he was setting the right examples, it pushed me to go the right path simply because of what he was doing. And now that I raise sons, I recognize the power of example. that I don't even have to say anything, but the way I walk, the way I sit, if I got my hands in my pocket, the way I talk to my wife, all of that, my sons pick up, and it molds them. It molds their mind about what it means to be a man, to be respectful. So I think that's real important. And another thing you hit on is the affirmation that men need, that we really need to be affirmed. We need somebody to tell us you're doing a good job.
Yeah.
I think what you're saying, men need affirmation, women need affection. And when you kind of think about that, you know, you really kind of identify that men, we need to be affirmed. You know, and so those young boys need to be affirmed for everything that they do, good and small, not just the athlete, but even a kid in the back of the classroom that says absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
Even a kid at church that may not have the best grades, may not get called to the front for an award, those young men too, those children too, need to be applauded, need to be appreciated. And sometimes we got to go out of our way and pay attention to those that are not getting the attention and give them the attention that they need. Like when I was a teacher, I tried to identify the one that was disinterested, sat in the back of the class, and didn't do anything. I knew the rest of them, I was going to pay attention to them because they were interactive. Yeah. So they were going to get my attention. But I was concerned about the young men that came in and had absolutely no interest, because I understood it really wasn't about me. That when he came into the class, it wasn't about that he didn't have any interest in the subject. He has a whole lot of other stuff going on before he even got to me. And so I don't even take it personal that he has this hard exterior when he comes up on me. What I do is I pull him to the side of the class and I start talking to him, only to discover, you know what, we got a whole lot in common. And he says, well, and he's shocked because he doesn't understand how somehow a person that grew up in a single parent home can become a teacher in the classroom, because they might not have saw that. And so I think when we as men, when we don't hide who we are, and we share our stories, Brother Grant, man, like the story you have that's powerful about you never seeing your father, man. Like, please talk about that a little bit, if you don't mind.
Yeah, growing up, I always grew up. My mom, and y'all know how old mothers are. If you don't know you poor until you actually leave your neighborhood and go somewhere else. I didn't know we were poor.
That's right. So
I never knew my father, and because of that, I never actually even asked my mom who my father was. I never grew up asking my mom who my father was, and so forth. And so all my life, I've just discounted it as being important to me to have a father or to know my dad. And one day, Chris was real little. He was young, and I think I was shaving or something in the bathroom. He was a real young boy. And he said, "Daddy, everybody always say I look just like you." I wondered, do you look like your daddy? And really, man, that brought tears to me, because it really showed that there was much more to me, that the image that I was providing for him, you know, I didn't have that, and not knowing my father. And so over time, I have prayed and asked God about forgiving my father, but I also have to acknowledge the fact and talk with my mom that, you know, maybe it was God's will for me. But with that being said, it does leave me to think that there is a part of me as a man that is still unaddressed. It has not been, I'm not saying I'm not whole and not complete, but there's areas that I always have the what is. Sitting in the stands, watching him play the first time that he was playing high school football, not literally, but high school football as a freshman, you know, I cried. I was crying, and my daughter was scared, and she had never seen me cry. But I was crying because everything that I wanted as a child, as a young man, having my dad in the stands watching me play, it was being fulfilled through me. God was fulfilling that in me, and I was just super excited. But what it really taught me is how it's important to have a father figure in your life, or a daddy, and more or less, I would say a daddy, because many men father children, but there are many. There are not. In other words, there are many daddies who are not the father of the children, if you understand what I'm saying. And so it meant a lot to me, and it to this day, it is something I'm still battling. Will I go and try to see, you know, one of those TV shows where you go meet the father? I'm not trying to have one, you know, so-and-so, you are the father moments, but I do believe for the perspective of my family and helping to see the full family tree, that is something I probably will do. When, I don't know. But it's something that I see in a lot of young boys in school, from when I was teaching and coaching in Fair Park to coaching in Marshall, Texas, to up here in Northwood, and then coming back to Fair Park as an administrator. What I oftentimes see at schools is the absence of men at the schools. And so how do I create those opportunities for boys to do it? So at Green Oaks, we started creating this mentoring type of group where we have selected boys. But it is very, very important. And any boy, any young boy out there, I'm speaking to you specifically, if you don't know your father, then make sure you link up with somebody who can be a father figure, who can still be a dad. I don't care if it might be your high school English teacher who's a male and he's instructing you. That's God putting them in your place and putting men in your place to substitute for the loss of a father, dad, and we oftentimes miss that.
Hey, Reverend Henderson, real quick, I want you to talk a little bit about, we're talking about facing fears and getting over them. And you have a story of what you've overcome and the fears you've had to overcome to get to where you were as a track star. Man, talk a little bit about that.
Well, Pastor, as growing up, I became inflicted with polio as a child, and I didn't know what was going on, and I ended up having to wear a cast on my leg, on one leg for a while, and I ended up wearing those, I call them Forrest Gump, those brackets and the boots, and it was a very traumatic experience in my life, but it helped shape me to who I am today because of the fact that going from those boots and becoming a runner and becoming a track star because of that really helped me grow as a person, because of the fact that I had never experienced anything like that. And I was very fearful during that time. I think as I look back on it, I was probably more fearful than I even thought at the time. But it allowed me to grow. And I thank God every day for the fact that he allowed me to use an ability that he gave me to run, to work my way through school. And it paid for schooling, and it helped me become the person that I am. And I really, at that point in time, when you're young, you be thinking that, am I going to ever be able to do the things that other people are doing? And to go from that to running barefoot on the track and going to track meets in college, and the Nike people that were starting out, Nike and Adidas, giving you free equipment and doing some other things that helped me. I'm so appreciative of where I've come from and what I've been through, because like we say all the time that sometimes you have to go through a trial to have a testimony. And I'm appreciative of the testimony that I have because of the fact that I went through some trials and tribulations.
And I wanted you all to share your stories, because I wanted all of the men and boys, I wanted them to see the imperfections that we all have. That all of us on this podium today are imperfect men. We've made some mistakes. Our stories are not perfect. Our stories are not free of struggle. We're just men just pressing through, just like every other man. And we're coming on this platform today to just let you know, because one thing I struggle with, man, is growing up, is I would look at a man and I would actually see him as complete. And I would never know how he got to where he was. And it always made me feel like I was underachieving as a man. Or, like, okay, this man has it all together and I'm struggling, not really understanding that there was a story behind it. I'm gonna give you an example of that, man. There's this husband and wife at the church that I really admire. And I know a lot of people do. They're older now. And when I look at their relationship, and it's amazing to see and to witness. And then when he started sharing his story, I didn't even know that early on in their marriage, she considered leaving him. Like he had his own struggle. He had his struggles with alcohol and all of those things, but God brought him through that. And now you see them today, and even though they may be in their 70s, they're this beautiful couple. But you don't know about the struggles that they went through those 30 years or 30 plus years to get to that beautiful picture. And I'm saying that to every boy and every man, that your life is literally like this incomplete picture, that God is continuing to fill in the blanks until he gets us to what he wants us to do. So wherever spot you are in your life, whether that's incarceration or just getting out of incarceration, that's just another chapter. That's not the entire part of your story. It's not the entire book. It's another chapter. Allow that chapter to help the other chapter be the next chapter be an even better chapter. So I just wanted to put it in real quick. Can you move us to chapter 2 a little bit?
Right. Yeah, I was going to say that. One thing before we move to chapter 2, I thought it was very important the way Patrick ended chapter 1 when he said, being scared or afraid does not make you weak, it makes you alive. The key is to not let the fear control you. You control the fear. And I thought deeply about that and thought about what it said in 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 9, where God said to Paul that my grace is sufficient and it is made perfect in the times of your weakness. And I think that's what we're hearing from all of us who have come past stuff. And as these, and for the young boys who are out listening, just know that although you may be fearful, you may think you can't get over it. Just stay true to who you are, and if you don't believe in God, then believe in someone who is godly, who has given you confidence to go forward. Is the thing here. So Patrick, your next chapter 2, I think is so dead on for all of us. Outworked everybody. Tell us a little bit about outwork everybody.
Man, hey, I can go on and on this one. So, my grandma, man, my grandma raised me. She used to always tell me, as a black person, black male, you gotta work twice as hard and be twice as smart, just to even be considered, not to be the best, just to be considered. So, I just always try to put forth my best for you. Gotta outwork everybody in everything you do, because everybody is trying to be the best, and not in an arrogant way, but we're just natural competitors. That's who we are as black males, and that's okay. It's okay to be competitive. It's okay to want to have the best body. It's okay to want to have a great spiritual relationship. And I mean, in every area, when I say outwork everybody, that's in every area of your life. You want to be the best dad you can be. You want to be the best spiritual leader you can be. You want to earn the most money. It's okay to want to make a lot of money. My dad used to always say, you make changes from the top, not from the bottom. So in order to make a difference, if I'm poor and you poor, I can't help you. I can lead, guide you spiritually, but somehow in our community, we got a problem with seeing people doing well. We want you to do good, but don't do too good. Don't you go out there and do too good. Don't you shine too hard. Wait a minute now. Slow down a little bit. So anyway, I met this guy named Henry Nelson, just speaking on segueing into what you were just saying. I met this older black man named Henry Nelson that worked at Chevy Land. And it was in 2003. I started selling cars at Chevy Land. And I actually went there because I wanted to be a pharmaceutical salesman. So I went there to get some sales experience. I had a college degree, but I didn't have any experience. Man, God placed Henry Nelson in my life because when I got there, I met this black man who was professional every single day. And he was like me. He wasn't considered no great looking guy. I mean, he wasn't bad looking, but he wasn't no model. And he didn't speak perfectly, kind of like me. I don't speak perfectly, but his presence and his work ethic and the godliness that was the God spirit that was on him was so strong, it made me want to be like him. And he outworked everybody. And so it was strong, man. And I see that I ain't on here kissing no butt or trying to gas y'all up, but I see that with you guys. I see Pastor Lacey hitting them weights and still pastoring and preaching. I see what you're doing with your son. I mean, you have to be that, and that type of energy draws the right people to you. And then those people draw more people to you. So you have to outwork everybody, man. In anything that you're doing, it's okay to want to be the best. I tell everybody all the time, I'm not better than anybody, but I am who my grandmother raised me to be, and I'm gonna try to be the best at that at all times. I'm not competing with anybody but myself. I want to be my best self all the time, and I want to inspire kids and young men to be their best selves all the time. I don't want to go on and on. I know this chapter, all of y'all can speak on this one.
Let's hear anyone, Chris?
I was about to say about that. I am a testament to just, when you say maximizing yourself and just being able to outwork everybody, because, I ended up being able to be blessed with the opportunity to go play football, full scholarship and everything like that. And I find myself starting over guys who are 6'5", 6'3", 205 pounds and all this, running faster than gazelles and all this stuff like that. And here I was never the fastest guy. I wasn't the tallest guy. I wasn't the strongest guy. But, what was instilled in me by my father was just, like you said, having that work ethic. And I would be laughed at by guys who would see me out there. I'd be just me and nothing but green grass. And I'm over here, working on different drills. I'm doing this, doing that after everybody's already worked out that morning. And guys looking at me like, man, what you doing all that for, man? You ain't, man, them drills ain't going, that ain't football, man. What you doing? You wasting your time. And I'm like, okay. And I'll just go out and do it every single day. And I said he saw myself rise up and, higher up on the depth chart and everything. And, the same thing in high school, same thing in the classroom. It was a lot of guys, you have a tendency to want to dumb yourself down sometimes, being in certain environments. I definitely experienced that in middle school. When I felt like I was the smartest kid in every class all the time. And the guys that I was cool with, they weren't trying to do work. They weren't trying to do homework and then like that. If the teacher hadn't said nothing about the homework, don't you say nothing about the homework. Because, they ain't ready and all that stuff. So here I am, like, dang, I stayed up all night doing this. I want to turn it in. Let me not say nothing. And that kind of goes back to what we were talking about in chapter 1. But how it pertains to, now, having that work ethic in the classroom and everything, while I was playing football down in Grambling, gave me so many opportunities as far as internships. I got a chance to go to Africa and do a mission trip and teach kids out there. I had a chance to work with my city, sport commission and stuff, and plan events in my city, all because I was able to have a mindset of just, I know what I want to be, and I know that somewhere there's a kid graduating from Rice University, Tulane, something like that, and they're all getting sport management degrees. So how am I going to stand out? It's a very competitive world. It's like selling cars. How am I going to get ahead as far as this goes? And so I understood, okay, the way that I can start getting the edge is start building relationships with people. You know, call somebody, get some information, introduce myself, go shake hands. You know, after you meet that person, like you said, call them the next day so they don't forget you. You know, it's a grind just meeting people alone. You know, just to see you and then recognize you. Hey, man, how you doing? You know, that alone takes a little bit of a grind, especially when you're talking about being in a Division I football season and, you know, having to still try to manage, you know, how am I going to build my career outside of this? And so I definitely have felt that feeling of just, you know, that motivation to have to outwork everybody and being able to see the results of it, you know, on the back end of it.
Yeah, and I mean, I'll just add to that, not only work ethic, but making sure that work ethic is contributing in the right field. Make sure you're working in the right field of labor. What I mean by that is because one thing about me, I've always had a great work ethic. I got that from my grandfather and my great aunt because I saw how they worked. But there were times when I saw myself working hard, but not seeing results and wondering why I'm working so hard and not seeing the results that I needed to see. And one of the principles that I learned is that a lot of times we will give the effort that's necessary in the field that we may not be equipped to work in. And I saw myself failing in a lot of areas because that just wasn't my area. And I was trying to force myself into an area of success that I just didn't have the skill set for, just didn't have the giftings for. The moment I found my niche, the moment I found that place where I know, man, I can do this for free, that if you wake me up 3 a.m. in the morning and ask me to do this, I can do it half sleep, and started putting that 100% in that area, that's when I saw things really go to the next level. I dropped out of college 3 times before I actually got my first degree. And one of the reasons that's the case is because when I first went to school, I was in a program that everybody just told me I should be in. We think this is for you. We think you'll fit good here. Try this. I did it. It just didn't work. No matter how hard I tried, no matter how hard I worked, I just couldn't get it to where I was being successful. Dropped out, came back, tried another area, just didn't work. Dropped out, came back, tried another area, just didn't work. I took the time to actually identify my gifts and abilities and what I was passionate about. And then when I started putting that effort behind that, it was almost, there's nobody, you can't put nobody in front of me now. And if you put them in front of me now, I promise you they're going to get ran over, because I know that I finally match work ethic with passion and ability. And once you do that, you are unstoppable, especially as a Black man. And so I would encourage everybody that's watching this, because I'm sure somebody's watching this and you've probably been in the same situation where you're saying, okay, I got the work ethic, I'm giving it all I got, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, but still not getting traction. When you find your niche, when you find that field that God just graced you and gifted you to be in, and you accompany that with that work ethic that Patrick is talking about and that Chris talked about, and you actually start giving that 110% in that area, you become unstoppable like that.
One of the things that I've always told athletes, because in coaching, when you're coaching, everybody thinks they should be playing, and if they don't play, they can come to be a little dejected. Well, one of the things I always told them is the only 2 things we control our attitudes and we control our work ethic. And that is because you don't control what you're going to experience when you walk out the door. I think from the movie The Devil in the Blue Dress, the guy told Denzel Washington, he said that you're mixed up in something every day you walk out your door. You just hope you mixed up at the top. But so my attitude is what's going to continue, regardless of if someone tells me no. I'm not going to be discouraged by your no, because whether they say it in Spanish, French, Russian, Germany, No is, yet, no, does not matter. You have to continue to go because eventually, somewhere, sometime, it's going to be a yes that's going to come. And oftentimes, what happens is young men, Black men in particular, because of so many things that have always been barriers to our success, we tend to develop a negative attitude towards certain positions and jobs and places because we are the minority when we go there, when we go places. It is one of the things that plagues African Americans when it comes to standardized testing, when they have to go to an ACT testing site and it's not a place they've been before. That anxiety causes them to not perform at their best. So our attitudes are extremely important. And I say to anyone raising young boys, continue to push them to be responsible for the things that they do, but also continue to talk to them about having the right mindset, because disappointment is going to come, and it's going to come probably more often to us because of our hue in this society than most people. So don't become dejected. Just keep fighting, keep working, keep pushing, keep doing those things. Because in actuality, the word of God says that God is the one that puts the desires in our hearts and the efforts in our actions. And so we need to be committed to that one thing there. So that I'm glad both of you said this. I want to read something quickly. One of the quotes out of the book, Patrick, that you said that the majority of people who aren't getting the places they want or aren't achieving the things that they want in this business is strictly based on hustle. Talk about that. Talk about that again.
Okay. My mic is, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Well, basically what you just said, you can't give up, you can't stop. Because we are Black men, we are going to be the minority oftentimes in the workplace. But you got to use that. You have to use that as fuel to keep going, to keep pushing, to keep striving, because that's just the way it is. We can't change that. We can't. Hopefully, it will change over time, and I think it will. As we do more and become more and open up more doors for other Black men to come in. But when you're a leader or a trendsetter or a individual that God has on a mission, oftentimes you're gonna find yourself by yourself. But you have to keep going. You have to keep pushing. You have to keep hustling. I kind of don't like the word hustle because in our community it has a negative connotation with it. But hustling doesn't mean you're doing something illegal. It doesn't mean you're doing something crooked. It just means you're putting forth your best effort to be your best you, so you can get to that particular goal that you're trying to get to. I can't hear you.
In the book, you talk about being a mystery. I found that to be real interesting, real fascinating. Expound a little bit more on what you mean about being a mystery.
So, I mean, your son, all of us can talk on that, but the mystery is people see us on the court, on the field, in the pulpit, in your office. They see that, but they don't see what we're doing when we're off the court, when we're out of the pulpit, when they just see the results. The mystery is the work that we put in outside of what you see. We're working 10 times as hard. LeBron James is working 10 times as hard in practice than when you see him on the court. Those are just the results that you're seeing. The mystery is those advantages that you give yourself by doing the things that people don't see you doing. That's the mystery. The mystery is when we finish this podcast, I'm gonna read the book again. I'm gonna stand in the mirror and I'm gonna speak. I'm gonna continue to work on how I sound when I'm speaking, because I know I'm gonna get more interviews. And eventually people are gonna say, man, this guy sounds amazing. But I didn't start off sounding like that. And so the mystery is, first of all, admitting that you do have shortcomings and that you do have flaws, and then busting your butt every day to erase those. And the universe and God will reward you for doing that. You just have to believe in yourself and keep going. That's the mystery. The mystery is doing those things that nobody sees you doing.
So listen, and I want all of you guys to chime in on this, because that's one of the things I talk about to men, is about scarring, things that we have come through that people don't see today. So I want some of you, Vern, Brandon, Pastor, even Chris, Patrick, talk about something that you were scarred to in your process you are today, that people don't see. They don't see it. You went through something, boy, and it almost had you go the other way. But you can. And to give an example of it, for me, one of the scarring was that coming home every day and there wasn't much or anything to eat made me say, I ain't living like this. So as people used to think playing football and all that was my motivation for trying to do what I had to do to get out of the way, we ain't had nothing. That was my motivation. And that's why I look at some kids who come to school who don't come from much, I look at them strange, because I'm like, I don't know about you. That was my motivation. That hit me when I woke up. It hit me when I came home. It hit me seeing eviction notices on the door. Hey, man, there was no way. So that was my motivation. And I didn't have nothing. So I was willing to walk to work, walk back home. I was willing to jog up to the school during the summertime to do football workouts because I wanted to be the best. My motivation was we ain't had nothing. So, but people don't know that about me. And when they hear me, they don't know that. So what scars do you have that got you to where you are that people don't see?
Let's just go around the table. Everybody just taking a turn. Reverend Henderson, let's start with you. Then we'll go to Pat. Then we'll go to Pastor Lacey. Then I'll chime in, and then we'll come back around to Brother Grant to kind of tip us off. All right, Reverend Henderson.
You might be muted.
He muted himself?
Yeah, he muted it himself. Yep.
When I'm the oldest in my family, and when I got the opportunity to go to college, and I knew that I would be the first one to graduate in my family, that was motivation for me. And a lot of people don't realize that when you get a scholarship, the scholarship is only for 1 year. At the end of each year, you have to sign another paper for the next year. And after that first year at Southern, when I came home and I was running in the summertime, and my brother would ask me, why are you running? And it's summertime. And I said, I have to be the best that I can be. And he couldn't figure that out for a long time with me running in the heat in the summertime. And Chris can probably attest to this. There are things that you have to do to make yourself become the best that you can be. And you do it when nobody else is looking. You know, when we were at school and we would party hard and whatnot, on Saturdays, we know you go to the games and all that kind of thing. But on Sunday, when everybody else was sleeping, I was out running that 6-mile cross country course we had on the campus and running the stadium steps and whatnot. So anything that I may have put in my body over the course of that weekend would be out before I hit practice on Monday. And I wanted to be sure that I was going to be in the best shape that I could be in, and I could limit myself. But I was very motivated to be the best runner that I could be, especially when one young man that beat me at the state championship because I slacked off at the end of a race. and he ended up at the same school I was at, and he was talking about how he was going to beat me all the time. That did me in, and I that gave me motivation to be better than what I wanted, than I thought that I could be, because I wanted to push myself to prove to him that I could be best. But my freshman year, our team captain, who ended up running in the Olympics, told us, kind of like Pastor Wilson said, y'all ain't nothing but crabs. And until you come through me, you're nothing. And I wanted to prove to him that I was somebody. And, you know, we had kids from all over the United States and from other countries, Trinidad and Bahamas and so forth. I wanted to prove to somebody that I was somebody. And that was my motivation.
All right, Pat, we're going to go to you next.
Give me the question one more time.
What motivated you to become the man you are today?
Oh man, I've always wanted to just make a difference. But let me. I don't want this to sound like some fluff talk, because I want to touch young boys. My original motivation was to improve the life of my mom and my grandmother and my aunt, the women that raised me. I didn't know I was poor until I was grown, because I got everything I needed. Man, we was flat broke, but I didn't know we was broke. I didn't know we was poor. So my motivation really is to help young men and young boys, and to inspire them to be their best selves. That's my motivation. And I wanted to be transparent in this book. I wanted to give people a guide, a cheat code. I read a lot of books, man. I read a lot of self-help books. Rich Dad, Poor Dad, The Millionaire Mind, and 48 Laws of Power. I can go on and on. None of them were specifically targeted to Black boys and Black men. So all my life, I've wanted to get to this place. I'm just like everybody else, though. I didn't have the money to support the dream. But I'm not a car salesman. I'm not a real estate investor. This is what I am. And even right now, I ain't got a lot of money right now. But God gave me this in during this pandemic. When he quieted the world, he gave me the time to get to this place. And so this is my mission, man. I want to help young Black boys. I know how tough it is and how hard it is as a young Black boy and a young man, just being lost, man, not knowing whether you're supposed to be a gangster or not knowing if you're supposed to be a player chasing a bunch of women, not knowing how to coexist with white people in corporate America. We're constantly putting on all these hats, man. And so I want to put together just a self-help guide to kind of help young boys and young men and just people in general, man. That's my motivation, man. That's my motivation.
All right. Pastor Lacey, go ahead. Unmute you. I'm gonna unmute you. Go ahead, Brother Lacey.
Man, I can take you to the exact spot in Moortown on the corner of Broadway and Cleveland, where I stood in the parking lot and made myself a promise at 12 years old. I was walking home one night, and one of the things about me, I used to come home even at that age, 11, 12 o'clock at night, not because I was running the streets or doing something bad. I just didn't like going home because of the dynamics of home and what was going on at home. I saw firsthand what crack cocaine can do to a household. And so I didn't like going home. And I was going home one night knowing what I was going home to. And I just stopped for about a minute in the parking lot in front of CNC Liquor Store. Those of y'all from Motown, y'all already know where I'm at. And I told myself right then and there, I said, I will never let my kids grow up like this. And I told myself that. And from that day forward, every time I want to quit, every time I make a mistake, every time I fall, after I get through crying or whatever I got to do, I remind myself of the promise that I made myself when I was 12 years old. And that's the thing that keeps me pushing because I actually have kids now. You know, I was 12 years old then. Who knows what was going to happen in the future. But when I laid eyes on my daughter for the first time, you know, in that hospital room, my wife didn't even cry. I cried. she looking at me asking me what I'm crying for. She the one that just had the baby. But I was crying because when I saw my daughter, I remembered what I promised myself at 12 years old. And I started from that day forward, reminding myself of that promise every time and telling myself that I can't, because for me, in my opinion, the key reason that we were going through what we were going through as a family. Shout out to my mama, if she gets a chance to watch this, strongest person I never met in my life. To have to overcome what she had to overcome came. And for me, the key to that was the absence of my father. I don't know if it was Pat or Steve that mentioned it at the beginning of the discussion, but I just felt like life would have been so much different for us had he been there. Not only God knows if that's actually true, but that's how I felt. That's how I interpreted it. And so for me, I said to myself, well, if I have kids, I ain't going nowhere. I don't care what happens, because if I leave them hanging, then they can end up living the same way I had to live in the absence of my father. And so when I made myself that promise, that continues to be the thing that keeps me going into a situation that I really don't want to go to, or times when I had to work a job I couldn't stand going to, or when my house got foreclosed on, or when my car got repossessed. All those negative things that when I dropped out of college and I was out, and I had to tell myself, I said, you made yourself a promise, man. You got to go back. You got to do this. You got to set yourself up and put yourself in a situation where you can make stuff happen, not just for your kids, but all those who you come in contact with. And so for me, that was my motivation.
Thank you, Brandon, for that. Just to kind of sum it up, I do want to read some comments real quick. Morris Brantley says that his mother and his dad and his siblings have motivated him. Casey Brown says the obstacles that we have overcome shape who we are, and talks about the discussion. And then Rico Bradford says watching my family and their struggles is a motivation. Just real quick, two things I think motivated me. The first one is when I was about 4 or 5 years old, it was like my first time in kindergarten. And Brandon knows a little bit about this story. But I was accepted into a magnet school because that's what my brother already was. And I guess during their trying to gauge what my mental or cognitive abilities were, whatever it was, I didn't perform well on the test. So what they decided to do was to put me in these special classes. I was literally like, they call it the speech program. And so they would pull the kids out of class, take them to another class, and you would stay in that class for a few hours, and then they'll bring you back to your regular class. Well, during that particular time, I'm 4 or 5 years old, and the kids would make fun of you because they understood you were basically like a special ed child or whatever. And so, man, that was the one motivation is that my mama pulled me out of that school because I spent 2 years in kindergarten in that school. And they eventually said, well, since he couldn't pass these first 2 times, we're going to send him to special ed. When they decided they were going to send me to special ed, my mom decided that she would just take me out of the school and enroll me into Lakeshore Elementary at the time. I enrolled in Lakeshore Elementary, and from Lakeshore Elementary, I pretty much began to excel academically everywhere that I went. So my motivation became I always felt like whatever they were telling me about myself mentally, I knew I could do more than what they were saying. So I always felt like I was overlooked and I was slighted even at 4 and 5. So I always had this chip on my shoulder, as if I had to prove people wrong coming in because I knew they already doubted me. Or at least I felt that way. And I do want to say that I think that's the power of the lack of affirmation. When you don't affirm young men and women at an early age, when we as adults don't go out of our way to affirm young people at an early age, then stuff like this happens. They end up, that lost black boy inside of them stays with them even now. I just got over I just got over that chip on my shoulder maybe since we've been in the pandemic. There was a white lady. She works for her name is Laura. I can't remember her last name, but her name is Laura. And she knew a little bit about my story. And she said, I want to speak to that 4-year-old little boy. And I want to let you know that you are good enough. I'm 38 years old. It took me 34 years to get past that. That's what I'm trying to tell you. But that was the motivation. The second part of my motivation was my mom. I've never seen my mom walk like regular people walk. She was always relegated to the wheelchair or to a walking cane. I just wanted to do more because I wanted to take care of my mom. That was my motivation. How can I take care of my mom who has raised 2 boys practically by herself? How do I help this woman? And I've even struggled in my adulthood because when she passed away, I actually lost my motivation. Like, that's when I recognized how much my mother had motivated me, is when she passed away. I had to find a new motivation. And a new motivation became my family, my wife and my 3 children. They became my new motivation. So that's pretty much what motivated me to stay out of trouble and do what I needed to do. Was I had teachers that doubted me, and I had a mother that was physically handicapped. And I wanted to be able to make sure that I could help her to get into a better situation. So those 2 things motivated me. But I want everybody that's listening to us to see that our struggles have motivated us as men. You looking at men today, we sitting on these podiums, we have families, but man, it's been a struggle for all of us. And that's what we came to share today, is our struggle. And it's still a struggle for all of us. And I think we can agree to that today. Brother Grant, we got 5 minutes, and we want you to just sum us up, take us out, you and Pat.
All right, I will sum us up real quick. Y'all know Frederick Douglass said this: where there's no struggle, there's no progress. And Psalms 139:14 says that I am fearfully and wonderfully made. And that's the one thing I would like to say from this, that we need to be reminded that we're not mistakes. Regardless of your trials and tribulations, we're not mistakes. Your struggles and your progress will ultimately be the thing that becomes your triumphs. It becomes the things that get you to where you want to be. And then also that people are the greatest resources that we have in our life. It's not money. It's not your intellect. It is actually people. And all of us can attest there's somebody or 2 that came into our lives that did something that got us. So God gives us the greatest resource, which is people. And so, Patrick, I want to thank you for it, and I'm going to let you close us out.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I just want to say to all young boys and young men, older men as well, that's watching this, your circumstances, you can overcome your circumstances. Your circumstances are not who you are. You can overcome your circumstances. You have to find a place of spiritual strength. A lot of times we work on our physical bodies to get strong. We work on financial. We try to get a lot of money, but you have to feed your spiritual self. You have to work your spiritual self, just like you go to the gym and lift weights to get stronger. You got to work your spiritual mind and be conscious of those people that God placed in your life to take you to that next place. Don't be so high on your horse. It could be a kid. It could be your son. Your son can lead you. Your daughter can lead you. God can speak to you through somebody that's not even related to you. Be open to that. None of us are beyond learning. And so I'm always listening for the voice of God from people that I come in contact with. I'm never too high to learn and to receive instruction from anyone that's allowing God to use them. So just believe in yourself. Believe in yourself. Don't give up. We all have insecurities. Everybody that you see that you think are winning, they have problems as well. And they've come from a dark place as well. And we all struggle to not go back to that dark place all the time. Nobody's better than you. Nobody's better than you. We all children of God, just trying to get to that place of spiritual perfection, which we're never gonna get there, but that's what we're striving for. So just know that. Just know that it's okay. It's okay, black man, black boy. It's okay to talk to somebody. It's okay to express your shortcomings to somebody. Just find somebody that you trust and that you can lean on when you're down, and be okay with the instruction that God gives to you through them. That's all I got. Thank you.
Brother Grant, I think you can agree with me, man, that we're going to have to do a part 2 of this.
Oh, yeah, no doubt. We're going to do part 2. And I think we agree we're going to do it every other Saturday because it takes time to prep it and have different guests. But we want to come back again with Pat and so forth to continue this discussion and so forth. I want to thank each and every one of you who come on, and for all who have chimed on and who've commented, I want to thank you guys too. This is an important part of our lives that we need to be here. And I'm reminded what Mordecai said to Esther when he told her that, you know, God has us in these positions for such a time as this, but we should not take it lightly that he can't find somebody else to do what we're doing. So I think we all thank God that we have been positioned to be able to do what we're doing here and going to do a little bit more than that. And I just want to thank you. I want to thank my son also because I constantly thank God for them, but the fact that he received the teaching and absorbed it, and then when it got some more in his own, and I thank our church as well. But so we got to do this, man. This is great stuff, and I'm just excited about what we can do with this.
Hey, whoa! Before we go
ahead.
Tell them about the book, Lost Black Boys.
So
Lost Black Boys.
So I did want to end with letting you all know that our discussion today has been built off of Patrick Brown's book, Lost Black Boys. Listen, go to Facebook, and you can look up Lost Black Boys. You can look up Patrick M. Brown on Facebook, and you'll be able to get this book. Also, tell us what other ways you can get it, Pat.
You can get the book on Amazon.com. You can get the Kindle version or the paperback version. Let me read the subtitle as well, because the subtitle is very important.
Go ahead.
The subtitle is for lost black boys who had to find themselves when no one else could.
Yeah.
So you don't have to remain lost. For lost black boys who had to find themselves when no one else could, you can go to Amazon.com and get the paperback or the Kindle version, or you can go to my page, Patrick M. Brown, and we have several people around the city who have the books.
Yeah, each one of us have the book on this panel. August the 8th is our next men's boot camp. Listen, if we weren't virtual, this is actually what boot camp kind of looks like if we were in a physical space, but it'll be a lot more men and boys. But listen, we want to continue to take this here. Bring your boys, parents, men, bring them to this space. YouTube, Facebook, August the 8th. We're gonna keep on with boot camp. We want to keep it's not just a one-time thing. It's not just an event. This is our motto. Boot camp is not an event. Boot camp is a lifestyle. And what that simply means is this is not just a one-time thing. This is something that we as a church and as the boot camp ministry, we do over and over and over and over again throughout the year. Boot camp is not an event. It's a lifestyle. In saying that, 10 o'clock, August the 8th, same time, same people. We're going to have a good time. Make sure you share this. And listen, Brother Steve wants to say something before we leave.
And want everybody out there to know, boot camp stands for because of others' testimony, Christ answered my prayers. And that is the whole essence of boot camp for each individual boy, young man, men, senior men. Because of others' testimony, Christ answered my prayers, which means we have got to talk and share with one another so that others can have their prayers answered. Because I said before, the greatest resources we have in our lives is people. That's what God puts in there. So if you have been put in a young boy's life, then it is incumbent behind you to talk to them, let them hear your testimony of trials, struggles, tribulations, and how you overcome, that they too can have their prayers answered.
Listen, we always end boot camp with our little boot camp call. So I'm gonna do it here, Brother Grant, Chris, Reverend Henderson. I need y'all to help because Pastor Lacey and Brother Brian, Brother Patrick, they don't know about boot camp. But this do this thing when we end boot camp. Let me get a whoop, 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 whoop. Thank y'all so much. Y'all have a good morning.